Welcome to the second and final day of DAIKAIJU FEST. I am your co-host Kent, and with me is your other
Jason, what's
co-host.
going on, everyone?
Happy Ultraman Day!
Yay!
And in fact, we will be talking a little Ultraman today on today's final day. So you can join the conversation via YouTube, Twitch, DLive, Facebook, and Periscope. And as a reminder, the GFEST Facebook page has been streaming video from previous GFEST since yesterday and will be continuing through the 12th. Also, Kyle Yount, host of the Kaiju Cast, will be hosting the first ever Kaiju Conline. There will be special guests, Artist Alley, vendors, and before we get to the schedule of events, Jason, is there any other brief housekeeping measures that you wish to?
um, yeah, if I can just bring up the little cam here. Basically, like as Kent said, we're on the following streaming networks to the right, and then as far as the left, you can follow us on the audio versions of our podcast shows at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and TuneIn. And if I can also bring up the other cam here for social media, you can like and subscribe to us on these following social media network websites. Just search for Daikaiju Network. And you can also find us at our own website over at daikaijunetwork.com.
All right. So, the schedule of events for today, we will start off with discussing some Ultraman. We're just going to have some thoughts on the shows and movies we've seen and just celebrating this very popular superhero. After that, we will have general Godzilla Tokusatsu discussion, similar to yesterday. We're just kind of, we bring just a few topics to the table. Anybody else can bring up topics as well for discussion. And then we will close out the day with GFEST, some of our memories of going to GFEST over the previous 8 years. That's how long we've been attending. And then looking towards the future. So, I guess how to start this Ultraman segment. I guess I will start by talking about how I kind of came to know Ultraman personally. I knew of Ultraman from an old toy that sadly I no longer have. It was a toy, gosh, maybe 6, 7, 8 inches tall, and it was kind of a cheap toy. I think I got it at KB Toys back in the mid 90s. It was, I think, a $5 toy. It was hollow, lightweight, but it was well painted. It was a pretty cool figure. And I kind of was aware of the Ultraman Super Nintendo game. I had seen it occasionally at various stores during the time period as well, but I never thought too much about it. And
I actually do have a copy of that game. It's in my closet right now with some of my other old school NES, Super NES games, and I played it for a little bit several years ago, and I really can't quite remember, but they really, I think it's some, in my opinion, on the game. I think it was something that I didn't really care much for, to be honest.
I heard mixed
Yeah.
reviews on that video game, and I think it was even ported to the Game Boy, and I heard the Game Boy was even
Mm-hmm.
worse. So yeah, that kind of tended to be the case there for a while back in the day during the early years of the Game
Yeah.
Boy.
As far as the figure that you mentioned, were you thinking of the superhuman samurai type of figurine that you were
No,
thinking about? Because I.
no, I had an actual Ultraman figure where his right hand or his right arm was kind of in a fist and was like this, and then his other hand was in a karate chop. And all you could do was like move his arms back and forth, and his legs you could only twist like side to side. And I'm very positive years ago I probably got rid of that figure, not knowing anything about
I
it, really,
I honestly
at the
can't
time.
quite remember that figurine, but oh well. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago, but
but yeah, for me, I think I do have some recollections of seeing Ultraman here and there during our early days, and then just seeing some of the advertisements here and there, and then of course when you grow up and then getting more into um, like like besides Godzilla and Gamera, it's going outside seeing some of the other kaiju and monster movies, and you sort of stumble upon Ultraman once in a while, and it just for me uh, for quite some time I just felt like it seemed to be a bit weird, a little bit out there for me for a while. I know we've had like with you and I when we started out, building out websites back in the late '80s. We did our own was it Monster Championship Wrestling. Uh,
we built websites in the 80s.
I said late '90s. Late '90s. I thought I mentioned late '90s, but anywho, we did the Monster Championship Wrestling. We did have Ultraman associated with that. I think we maybe have incorporated a few of the monsters that we've known at the time, and I know I've uh, talked to some people online during that time that ran some of the Ultraman specific websites, and that's about it. And up until I would say, gosh, I think it was 2012 when I actually formally introduced myself into the whole Ultraman universe.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was apprehensive getting into Ultraman at first as well because I didn't necessarily believe it would be a character and a franchise that I would enjoy. And similar to what I was saying yesterday when we were discussing Gamera,
Mm-hmm.
that back in my early years of being a young fan, kind of in my, uh, you know, early teens, as I got a little bit older, I thought anything that was more or less not Godzilla was a cheap rip-off knockoff and really didn't deserve my time and attention. And really, I thought in general shouldn't be praised at all. I was just one of those fans in my very early years. And again, like I was saying yesterday, as I got older and just kind of matured and got out in the real world more, and then started finding myself needing more of an escape from the dregs of reality, I started having a resurgence in my own personal fandom of reconnecting with the kaiju tokusatsu
Mm-hmm.
genres. And like I was saying yesterday, certain films that I initially did not think were fun or good films at all, I actually started finding to be fun and good films. And I still was apprehensive about Ultraman, and a lot of that was just because there's still, at least from my personal experience, there just didn't seem to be a whole lot of information out there. I didn't really know what to make of it. I was a little leery about some of the wackadoo-looking monsters that
Right.
were associated with the character, and I just didn't know if that was something for me. And I know you had been talking about it for a while at the point too, and you seem to have gradually, even without having seen anything, you were reading more about it. You were just in general learning more about it,
Mm-hmm.
and you were becoming more and more interested. And you're like, "Oh, we need to try to hunt something down and watch it." I'm just like, I don't know. And then when we went to our first GFest in 2012, GFest 19, you had picked up the then Mill Creek DVD
Yeah.
set, which included the English dub of the original
And I
Ultraman
think that was
series.
probably the same year when I got the shirt, or probably the following year when we were
Yeah,
there.
it could have been. And then when we came back, because you stayed at my place for a night before heading home the following day after G-Fest, you watched, I don't know, the first few episodes. And I watched the first two episodes with you before I headed off to bed because I had to go get up early and go to work the following day. Um, I I actually enjoyed it. The first two episodes I saw with you, which I don't know the exact names of the episodes, but the first one had
Hmm.
Bemular as the first enemy kaiju, and then you had Balton as the second one. And I was sold. And of course, this hit me at a time in my own personal fan resurgence, and after our first G Fest as well. You and I came back like we were even more stoked about kaiju. We were like, all right, like you know,
Yeah.
I think both of us were in sort of a kaiju funk for a number of years there because obviously nothing new was coming out for a while, and I think we were also burnt out for a while as well because you had the Millennium series where about a 6 year period
Well,
something new was coming out.
well, we had there was news inklings at the time around 2010 that there was a Godzilla movie coming out in 2012, and that's when we initially started Daikaiju Network. But at the time, when we were Planet X Control Room, and that's essentially the reason why we started the podcast was essentially
Well,
because
yeah.
of what essentially became the 2014 legendary Godzilla film, and then once it came around to I think 2011 or 20, yeah, somewhere around 2011, it's like there was really no new news, and we just kind of went on a hiatus for maybe about a year and a half until since our resurgence in
Well,
2012.
yeah. But yeah, that first G Fest that we attended, that just really stoked a fire underneath us. I had already been fired up for about 7 months at that point, anyways, and I just got even more fired up. And again, like I said, I got sold on Ultraman after seeing those first two episodes. And then that Cyber Monday, several months later, I found that Amazon was selling that exact same Mill Creek set for like $5. It was originally selling for like 15, I think, at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and they were selling it for $5. And I hit the buy button, and then starting in early December of 2012, I started going through that
Yeah,
entire series,
and I
and
think that's
it's amazing.
same year was I think it was Shout Factory. They came out with Ultra Seven at the time too.
hmm I ended up buying that set later in 2014, like the fall of 2014, and watched all of
Mm-hmm.
that in 2015. Uh, but that original Ultraman, for me, is my favorite out of the ones that I've seen in their entirety. I've seen the original one. I've gone through that 3 times. I've gone through Ultra Seven once.
Yeah, same here.
I enjoyed. I did enjoy that. I thought a lot of the um, uh, Specter Man. That's a set I have,
Specter
but
Man,
unfortunately, I have not gone
you
through
you
that.
have you've got to watch that. I remember it's like someone on YouTube several years ago had the entire series uploaded on there, and so I watched it there, and it was. I have to say it's really good, and I've got a copy. No, I don't even think I got a copy of it. I think yeah, I do. Actually, I do. But yeah, you should definitely give Spectre Man a watch.
I know. There are a lot of series I have yet to. I still have like a number of Ultraman series that I've purchased but haven't gone through yet.
Yeah,
My son's actually gone through more Ultraman series than I have. Did we go through the new Netflix series? When that first came out, I saw the first episode and I actually liked it, and I've been meaning to go back to it. I actually kind of forgot
yeah.
about it.
I've only have
I need to
I've
do
only
that.
seen
I don't even know if it's
I've
still
only
on there.
seen the first season so far, and currently right now have a subscription to Netflix at the moment. And I think the second season came out in April, I believe. But yeah, my initial thoughts, and I've read several chapters of the manga itself, and by far, I think the manga version is really good. And as far as the anime adaptation, I'm still not quite used to the whole 3D character sort of animation for
Hmm.
you know preferred specific reasons. But I think so far it's all right from what I've seen so far. But for the time being, I think that the manga version of that Ultraman is really good.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody there's a healthy like minute and a half delay, something like that, from the moment we see any questions or comments you make to the time in which it actually registers through our feed. So I just kind of want to remind everybody about that. Like, there's a good healthy delay here with this stream. Um, but yeah, I've been meaning to go back to it, and just kind of I just forgot about it. A couple of things I want to bring up first about Ultraman before we kind of dive more into some of the particular shows, movies, etc., is that if anybody is looking for information, sort of how Ultraman began and all that, there are two places I want to kind of direct you to. Where I think there's some good information. Kaiju Cast, I believe it was May of last year, had August Ragoni on there, and they were covering Ultraman, and August talked about kind of how Ultraman began. And I would direct you to that particular episode, basically saying that Ultra Q after Ultra Q, they were wanting a sequel to that, and then there's this real interesting build up to how Ultraman came to be. And then also with August Ragoni, he has this book, Eiji Tsuburaya Master of Monsters.
Can't really see it
right there on the cover. Oh, you can't? Is it because of my
yeah,
background?
because of your background.
Make sure. Oh my gosh. Oh, my background. Uh-oh, I disappeared.
There you go.
Okay, there. Oh, here. Let me see if I can undo my background here for a second. I'm in my living room, so that's why.
The magic of
here.
live TV.
Okay. None. Okay. Can you see me? Okay.
There you go.
Right there. Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. There's a good, healthy section on how this whole thing got started. I believe it started on page 113. So, boys and girls, if you have your Eiji Tsuburaya, turn to page 113. Starts right there. Hero from the Stars. And it just goes into a lot of detail as far as how Ultraman got started. A lot of photos there as well. Those are the two resources I would point you to in order to learn more about Ultraman if you are at all interested. So, yeah. And so did we kind of want to go through some of the series that we have seen thus far and just kind of do a general discussion about them, as well as films?
Yeah, I think we can probably do that.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and kind of start us off discussing the... Okay, actually, I for me personally, and I know in many ways this isn't Ultraman, but it's kind of the seed that started Ultraman, is the series Ultra Q. That is a series where if you have not checked it out, I would highly recommend it. It's a 26, 28 episode series, black and white, released in 64, I believe. And it's sort of like an Outer Limits meets Twilight Zone type of show. You occasionally do have some kaiju in there. Some of them will even make future appearances in the
Ultraman franchise.
Yup, and it's a really unique series. It has Kenji Sahara in there as one of the main characters. It's a really fun show, and especially if you're someone who has seen such shows as Twilight Zone and or Outer Limits, I think this is something you will enjoy. And plus, if you just like strange, weird creatures too, I would highly recommend watching that in general. But why don't you go ahead and kind of start us off with Ultraman, the original series?
Well, you sort of stole my thunder a little bit because I was going to actually start out with
Oh,
Ultra Q
sorry.
there, but yeah, obviously, as what Kent mentioned, that the Ultraman is second. You can say second installment, but initially with it being the first Ultraman of many Ultramans. Um, so yeah, it the series came out in 1966, and yeah, so basically a giant being from was it M76
78.
78? My bad. Get a little bit confused with numbers there, but comes down to Earth, and you have your science patrol, and this is sort of kind of the whole setup for many of the other Ultraman franchises. So it's sort of basically the main template for future Ultraman shows, and basically you get this entire team called the Science Patrol, and there's many other branches around the world, but mainly focused on the Japanese branch. And basically, you have your hero or protagonist Hayata, who was trying to follow, trying to take down a another unidentified object, and unfortunately crashes into Ultraman, dies, but then is brought back to life and saved by Ultraman by becoming Ultraman himself. And basically, uh, the entire show is just him fighting different kinds of monsters, helping out his team, so on and so forth, going through uh, hurdles with different issues from episode to episode. So that's sort of the basic premise of Ultraman, and basically what sets the template for many other TV shows in the future.
Yeah, and most of us that are Godzilla fans, we're very much aware that television was a huge reason why kaiju, tokusatsu films in general, kind of in the late 60s and the 70s, started petering out. And a lot of us sort of lament that, but at the same time there was the silver lining. You got a lot of these really fun shows that were able to kind of give you a 30-minute kaiju fix, so to speak, where instead of sitting down watching an hour and a half of a movie and getting, some of your kaiju action, but you're sitting through a lot of human drama in quite a few of the films as well. When you watch an Ultraman, or even at the time, I believe Space
Mm-hmm.
Giants was around kind of when the original Ultraman was airing as well on the Tokyo Broadcasting Station. Um, you got you within a 30-minute period, you could see a giant monster destroying some miniatures, and then add that with a superhero coming in to save the day. And Ultraman, as we were saying yesterday, is uber popular in Japan, and it's easy for me to see why, considering the fact that I've very lightly dabbled in many of the future iterations of this character, and kind of understand the appeal, why many children and young adults, and potentially even older adults, connect with this character, and what have you. And kind of like you were saying, even though a lot of the future series more or less kind of copy what starts here in 65, I believe it is, with the original
Mm-hmm.
Ultraman, they end up just kind of transforming into their own thing. You start getting different Ultraman. You have Ultra 7 that comes after Ultraman. After that is it's Return of Ultraman that comes
It's
after Ultra 7.
yes.
And then after that it's is it Ace?
Let me just double check here.
I always get confused as far as what
Yeah,
comes
so
next.
next,
I've heard
after Return of Ultraman is Ultraman Ace.
okay. Yeah, and personally for me and my son, since this pandemic, he's gone through more Ultraman series, I think, than I have. He's really fallen in love with that character in those series. He's gone through Return of Ultraman. Now he's working on Ultraman Ace. He's seen a few episodes of the original Ultraman. And he's really enjoyed them. And again, I think part of that is, again, a quick kaiju fix within a very short period of time. But then, too, there's that superhero element as well. You get,
Well,
the
and
fighting
then and then
as
the other thing too is that with it being TV compared to films, there's less money to be spent on these projects, and as well as for TV that they can expand on the show itself and do more with the characters and the plot as well.
hmm yeah. And personally, as I go through every time, the three times I've gone through the original Ultraman series, I found myself enjoying more of kind of the first half of the series than the second half. Even though this last time I went through the series, I actually started enjoying the second half more than I had previously. I just thought that the first half of the series, there was something about the storytelling and even some of the effects work that um, was charming. That it was, yeah, kind of your stereotypical monster shows up, Ultraman shows up, fight, Ultraman wins. The stories got a little bit more sophisticated with time, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are some definitely good stories as you progress through that series. But I thought, though, too, that Ultraman, kind of in the second half of that series, started coming off a little bit more as a villain, in my opinion. There were some episodes where you have a kaiju show up and he just kind of starts beating him up, and the kaiju. It's almost like he tortures a kaiju
Talking
sometimes,
about the one
or
with that
he
kind of that skeletal looking dinosaur.
there's that one that one stands out to me more than any of the
Mm.
others. That Monster X looking type of kaiju. I want to say it's Sibo or something like
That
that is
that
its
does sound
name.
familiar, but I don't know the exact name of it right now.
But yeah, I always kind of thought Ultraman came off in a more villainous type of way, kind of in the latter half of the series. And I don't know. I don't know if just the way I was viewing it was different. I don't know, but it was definitely different. And I think the effects work got more refined too as that series
And
um,
as
continued.
well as obviously the appearance of Ultraman himself, whereas like in the first several episodes where his helmet was a little bit unrefined, a little bit up until the later half of the show itself, where it was much more refined and more identifiable in a way.
Yeah, well, August, I believe, said that I think initially they were looking to maybe have the mouth move a little bit, which is why that helmet looked the way it did during the first few episodes, and then they just decided, no, we're not actually going to do
Well, I
that.
think that, and from what I've seen, this one CGI filled, I think fan made trailer, or I think it was a proof of concept trailer several years ago, probably around the same time that the Gamera supposed proof of concept reboot trailer came out, where they did like a full on CGI Ultraman along with I believe it was I think I was gonna say Bimular, but it's not Bimular, but it's one of the other familiar monsters that he was basically just like a living being. It wasn't like an entire suit or a helmet. It was like you can see him move his lips and everything. So it's, I think they were originally trying to look make him as like the actual person himself, that entire form, but I think something just didn't work out well, so they just made it out to be more of a helmet in a suit.
Hmm. Yeah, but that original series is just fantastic. Again, as I've gotten older, I have found myself really enjoying older films and TV shows more than a lot of the newer stuff. And again, a lot of that has to do with practicals and the fact, too, that a lot of studios, whether it be TV studios or movie studios, they took more risks back in the day. They were more willing to make some of your kooky monster movies and TV series and all that. A lot of that stuff, you just don't see a whole lot of that today anymore, unfortunately. And there's a charm to a lot of that older stuff. I think there's just something really fun about seeing the earlier Godzilla and Gamera movies, and even these earlier Ultraman series, when you have men in suits and you have practical effects there and they're wrestling each other and destroying stuff. There's just something really fun about that, that as you move more into modern day, it just gradually becomes lost in translation more and more after X amount of
Mm-hmm.
years. And it's just kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, thank God for streaming and home home media services that we can go back and just continue to watch this stuff at our
Mm-hmm.
leisure. Um, but going on into Ultra 7, um, I enjoyed that series too. I thought definitely the one of the first things I noticed was that the effects were much more refined. I think that came out a year after, and I just was amazed at how improved the effects work was on that particular
Mm-hmm.
series. Um, but something that sort of turned me off just a bit from Ultra 7 had more to do with, I think, the tone of the series in general. I thought the series took itself a bit more seriously. And I don't know, did you think that way too? I just thought the series was darker in tone
Um,
compared to the first one.
it, if I can remember, it's been some time since I've last watched Ultra Seven, and I think if I can remember, I think there were at times where they had some of the same quirkiness that was in Ultraman, and then I can still remember seeing some of the serious tones to some of the episodes. I think it'd be a mix. I mean, I probably would have to go back and rewatch the show again sometime down the road, and just probably uh, kind of focus more on the overall tone of the show. But if I can remember, I think it seems to be a little bit of a mix.
Yeah, I do remember, and one of the episodes had these, I think, three. He looks into, and I forget the names of them, but I think these are little creatures from outer space. I mean, I guess what else would they be? But he looks into like a fire, and there are these little weird goblin type of creatures that kind of talk in a low, squeaky type of voice. And I think that was an episode or a series of a few episodes in which Ultra 7 was finding himself on the verge of ultimate defeat. And I thought to myself, I'm going, again, this looks really good, but I just am not enjoying it to the extent that I did with the previous series. Um, and and I think too that's kind of when Ultraman started getting a little bit more violent in the series. I mean, we saw in the original series some decapitations and the cutting off of limbs and other appendages.
Explosions of an entire
Um,
kaiju.
right, and I've noticed because my son watched all of Return of Ultraman, and now he's going through Ace. I haven't seen all of Return of Ultraman. I've only seen a few episodes of Ace, where even then I've noticed the violence has. I was here a couple days ago. He was going through a couple episodes of Ace, and I was in the kitchen. All of a sudden, I heard him go, "Oh, oh no!" And I kind of look in, and it's Ace facing two or three kaiju, and one of the kaiju had another kaiju on the ground and started like ripping its skin off
What?
and ripping like a limb or two off as well. And I'm just like, yeah, that's actually pretty bad.
Wow.
It was a little jarring even for me. I'm like, I can handle like ripping off an arm, but ripping off the skin, like that just gives me the willies a little bit. It's kind of gruesome,
Yeah.
but
I don't know how that would feel if that actually ever happens, but
uh, just hope we don't find out ever.
yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, so as far as some of the other Ultraman shows I have seen, I haven't actually gotten around to Return of Ultraman or Ultraman Ace. I have seen at least an episode or two of Taro, but I'm just for right now. I'm not gonna make any um, uh, make any thoughts on that for the time being. But right after that is Leo, Ultraman Leo, which I have seen all of it a few years back when I had a subscription to Crunchyroll, and obviously you'll be able to see some of these other shows for free along with ads and everything. But uh, for Ultraman Leo, it's a I would say it's a pretty interesting take. Whereas I think sort of to where it gets the the main template for for this entire franchise, I think tends to change maybe just a tad bit. Whereas the main character, Gen Utori, if I'm pronouncing that right, he's more or less kind of a like a student or a master at this martial arts type of school, and I think if I can remember, he wasn't associated as much with the team that's in this series. If I can remember what the name of this, it's MAC, which is an acronym for Monster Attack Crew. I think he was involved with them in maybe in a couple episodes, but I think he did eventually go full on with them. But it seems to be set up a little bit more. And with Leo, he doesn't come from M78, but he comes from from the place called Nebula L77 from the Leo constellation, hence the name Ultraman Leo. And it's to me what it feels like. It feels like in the first episode comes off like a sequel to Ultra 7 because you eventually see uh, the lead. I forget his name at the moment that played Ultra 7, but he does. Uh,
Dan, I think it's
Dan,
Dan.
yeah, yeah, Dan. He does make some appearances in the show along with Ultraman Ace, returned in original Ultraman. and then you get like Zoffy, like some of the voice actors, Astra and Ultraman Kane within this show. It's a pretty, in my opinion, when I watched the show, it seemed to be sort of like a funky kind of Ultraman show in a way. You get some of these unique, weird monsters in that TV show, which I think makes some occasional appearances in the later on the series, including some of the newer Ultraman shows. But it's a pretty interesting show as far as I can remember. It's got some good characters. The main character, Gen or Gen, Gen. He seems to be. He kind of has a little bit of an ego, so to speak, and he doesn't tend to have, like, he thinks straight forward. He doesn't really think before he does anything from time to time. And I think that is when Dan comes in to sort of guide him and help him out. And it's a pretty interesting TV show, Ultraman Leo.
That's one of those that I have, and I have yet to go through it. What I ended up doing, I think it was 2-3 years ago, I popped in the first DVD and I did watch that first episode, and Dan does enter middle towards the end of that first episode. I do remember that. I remember it was a real fun opening because you have two kaiju already fighting each other in this big storm out in the ocean, and it was a really catchy opening to that particular series. Yeah, I did get the impression too that the lead character was a very hot-headed individual who definitely needed guidance, and that one did look interesting. I think, isn't that the first Ultra series that starts the 70s?
If I can bring this, no, it was Return of Ultraman was the start of the 70s. This one,
Oh,
yeah, this
really?
one
Oh.
is sort of in the early to mid 70s, from 74 to 75.
Okay, and there's another question I want to ask you because, as we have established already, in terms of Ultraman, you have Ultraman, Ultra 7, Return of Ultraman, Ultraman Ace.
And Taro.
Just the. And Taro, yeah. But when my son was watching Ace the other day, there was a two-part episode in which Zoffy was with the Ultra Brothers. They were getting crucified by the villain of the series. Where does Zoffy fit in all this? Because as I was sitting there watching that particular episode, I thought to myself, wait a minute, I thought it was, in the order I had just stated. And I'm
Yeah.
going, did I miss a series in between? Like, did Zoffy actually come before Ace somewhere? Where does Zoffy
Well,
come in
from
here?
what I'm seeing here for the list of the entire show series, he doesn't have his own TV show. All is
Interesting.
Ultra Q, Ultraman, Ultra 7, Return of Ultraman, Ace, Taro, then Leo, we're currently talking about, and then it comes the Ultraman, and then the last in the Showa era series is 80.
The Ultraman, and that's
But he
interesting.
does
So,
have his own movie though, which I think was released in the 80s. If see if
so
I can
that's
bring
interesting.
this
So
up.
he's
Yep.
because he's nowhere to be found in Seven and Leo. Um, well, maybe he is. I haven't seen that entire
I
series.
think
I just thought it was strange that you have an Ultra brother who shows up, but yet, you know, because what they did in Return of Ultraman, they had original Ultraman, and then they had Seven show up. I think even Jack showed up a couple of times during that series as
well,
well.
according to the voice actors that made an appearance for Ultraman Leo is, as I mentioned earlier, Astra, Ultraman King, and then Zoffy. the original Ultraman, the returned Ultraman, Ace, and then Ultra 7. But he does have his own movie, which came out in 1984 called Zafi Ultra Warriors versus the Giant Monster Army.
Wow.
And then something here says...
there's a lot of Ultraman stuff.
It says story here, but don't really see anything associated with Zafi. They're, from what it looks like, more associated with Taro. But, yeah.
Yeah, my personal collection, I mean, I guess I'll say this first. I have, with the exception of Ultra Q and Ultra 7, I have purchased all the new Mill Creek Blu-ray sets, because I already owned Ultra Q and Ultra 7 on DVD prior. I did double dip into the Ultraman just because, again, that's my favorite of the Ultraman series.
I did repurchase Ultraman and Ultra 7 too, just to try to keep things consistent in a way. And I think I still have...
Yeah.
Well, even Ultra Q as well, but I still have the original right up on that top shelf there.
But I do have some of the the Blu-rays, like the Ultraman Orb Saga, I think is what it's called. It's sort of a mini-series from my understanding. Then there's the double set of Geed, along with the Geed film, Orb, and the Orb film. And I think at the moment... Oh, and then X. I got X as well.
Yeah, I think...
Do we own Ultraman figures? I do, yes.
Yeah, see,
in fact...
There's my Ultra 7 right there. I think it's a Bullmark, I believe, or Marusan. And then over here I got Ultraman or Belial and Ultraman X. And then if you look over here, move up my microphone, you got a giant Tiga right there. And then also I got Ultraman Saga and Geed minifigures over here. So
I own a number of those. They're called Ultraman 500 figures.
Yeah.
The figures are roughly this tall. They're maybe, I don't know what you would say, like 5 inches tall, 4 or 5 inches tall.
4 to 6 inches.
And
I know my Geed and Ultraman Saga figures are part of that 500.
Yeah, and I love that line of figures because, for me anyways, they're just the right size because I collect a lot of things. It's not just Kaiju and Tokusatsu things like Ultraman that I collect. I collect superhero things too, at least certain superhero things, and Masters of the Universe as well. And plus, I'm a history major, so I got tons of bookshelves with books as well. So I collect a lot of things, and the Ultraman 500 figures are just the right size. They don't take up a whole lot of space, and especially
when it comes to Bandai figures.
Well, and it needs to be noted first day of GFEST. But during GFEST, and I bought these at a GFEST 4 years ago, they were very reasonably priced too. I mean, you can get a lot of figures for not spending a whole lot of money, and they are very well detailed. All sorts of different kaiju as well, all the different types of Ultraman as well. I had a number of them, and in fact here over the last couple months I've actually given some of my more obscure kaiju to my son to play with, but I still own a number of the more recognizable kaiju. Bemular is one that I have. I also have Baltan.
You have Zeton?
I might. I have one other kaiju at least, and I think Zeton might be that one. But then I have a number of different Ultramen. I don't remember all of them. Like there's the original one, there's 7, Jack, maybe Zoffy. I know I have X.
Do you
Um,
have like
I think I have a couple more.
Zerth?
Uh, I don't think so. I do have Belial. Belial I always thought looked really cool. I like the design and look. He's not a good guy, but I just like the look of
Mm-hmm.
him. It's kind of like Mechagodzilla. You have this, evil doppelganger, and there's just something I've always been fascinated about having a villain that is similar in appearance and I guess power as the hero. That's always fascinated me,
Yeah.
whether it's in movies or TV shows. But yeah, we do own. I do own a few figures. I probably anywhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 of those small Ultraman 500 figures. Those are awesome. If you ever get a chance to go to GFEST, there are a few vendors there that sell them, and one vendor in particular, I think it's Radioactive Toys, and they may be at Kaiju Conline starting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would check that out when that starts tomorrow at 9 Pacific in the morning, obviously. Uh, See if they are present, and then if they are, see if they're selling any of those Ultraman 500s, because that was the vendor in which I purchased all of my 500 figures, Ultraman
And I know
500. I mean,
that
500
I think
figures.
it might have been them or a different vendor, like at the corner where Radioactive Toys was, that they have like this rotating type of rack where they display all
It's
those.
radioactive.
Okay,
Yep.
so they had like a display of all those 500 figures, and then they even have like a little container right on the floor of like of uh, figures that were bought from previous customers or something of the sort for like I think $5 each, if I can remember correctly. And then I know that there's another vendor sort of right around that same area that also sells Ultraman figures quite a bit. I think they sell quite a bit of the Ultraman 500s, but I think they sell a little bit more of like sort of the full-on sized Bandai figures than the miniature 500 figures. But yeah, I usually typically go to either that vendor. I'm not sure what the name of that vendor is, and then along with Radioactive Toys whenever I'm in the mood to getting Ultraman 500 figures, which now you kind of sort of tempted me to do that now.
I, I know. Thanks, S. Will. Now I want to go out and buy more of these. In fact, yesterday I went onto eBay because I don't have Ace as part of that lineup. I'm like, I wonder if I can find an Ace figure, and I found a bunch of them for reasonable prices. But then I looked at the shipping. Shipping was anywhere from like 20 to almost $40, and I'm like, I bet these are from Japan. And so I clicked on a few of them. Sure shooting, they're all from Japan. I'm going, I can't justify spending anywhere between 50 to $60 total for one of these. I'm going, I'll just wait till the next G Fest.
Yeah, and I know I was originally trying to try to collect some of the more recent Ultraman figures like Orb and Ultraman X behind me, and they're the regular size, like full on Bandai figures, probably about that tall, probably maybe around 6 8 inches or so, possibly 10. Uh, and and I was trying to look for Geed the year when he was coming out, but they didn't really have one. The closest one was like sort of the 500 one, which is close about the half the size of Ultraman Orb and X there. So I was like, I might as well just go for that one instead, because it's like I've not seen any of the vendors have the regular size Ultraman Geed.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about some of the contemporary Ultraman movies and franchises. Um, you have, through Crunchyroll and other means, have been able to see more of the newer shows and films,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been very hesitant to watch a lot of the newer stuff. I've seen a little bit of it. In fact, here I've got a couple of movies I wanted to show. My son and I, a couple months ago, and I did buy these at a G Fest 3, 4 years ago. Um, I bought these. Oh, again, I'm probably going to have to turn off my
Yeah.
background here. Hold on just a moment. At least I remembered this time. Bear with me for just a moment here. Okay. So I have this one. Try to
Oh,
get the
the Mega
glare
Monster
off.
Battle Ultra Galaxy Legend. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the first introduction to Belial, if I remember correctly.
That and I think that is the first movie to Ultraman Zero.
Yeah, it is. And then the sequel, Ultraman Zero: The Revenge. I have to
Actually,
kind of laugh at Belial's appearance in this one.
actually, I think I've
Un
only seen the Revenge of Belial, not Ultraman, the Mega Monster Battle one, or I could have seen both of them. I'm not entirely sure.
they are they're relatively fun films, I will say. For me, not being a huge fan of more the contemporary Ultraman um, films and shows, I kind of enjoyed them. My son obviously really enjoyed them, and in fact, today when I brought these down because I was going to show them on here, he looked at me and goes, "I want to watch these again sometime, Dad." And I said, "Well, we'll get there." But I did kind of enjoy them. I thought they were pretty fun films, definitely unique. But one of the reasons why I've been so hesitant on getting um, into the new Ultraman stuff is that from like the two movies I've seen and from bits and parts of a few other series that I've seen, um, there's just I don't necessarily care too much about some of the human characters. It seems to me, again, and this is going off a very limited exposure, but it seems to me that, like a lot of the human characters are more emo, and that to me is not fun to watch. Um, and just it seems to me though too like the Ultraman universe has become so expansive that it's sort of intimidating to also follow along because you had brought up some films I didn't even know existed that had come up in the 70s and the 80s. I'm like, man, like how can I follow some of this stuff? And
Yeah,
it seems more toyetic
a
as well, a
little
lot of the newer
a little bit,
stuff.
especially with you got your like with Ultraman Giga, they use the like the Ultraman 500 as figures to transform, and with Geed they use
Yeah.
cards, and or like these bullet like vessels or something of the sort, and then most recently with um, oh poop, I forget forgetting the name right now of the new Ultraman. Uh, yeah,
Z.
Z. There you go. So simple. um,
It's a
where now
letter.
they're using like these coins or Pog esque type of devices to transform it, or to morph. But I think it sort of is a bit unique, and I think it adds and expands more to the franchise, so to speak. And I think it also expands the whole lore in the universe. And I think it's also pretty cool that they're making things, trying to bring uh, more of the other Ultramans to tie into some of these other films for like these different Ultraman,
Oh
and
yeah.
so on and so forth. It's just to me more or less just expanding the whole universe.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong on that, but like when you're talking about coins, using actual figures,
Cards.
cards and that sort of thing, that to me reminds me of what a number of American kids shows in the 80s were like, where it was about pushing
Mm-hmm.
toys. That to me sounds like they're not just creating a new series or a set of films, they're trying to push merchandise as well, and that they become over time more conscientious of that as they are
Well,
developing these new
that and
series.
then before or after the intro to Ultraman Z uh, concludes, for each of these new Ultraman Z episodes that they do show like the little device and then the coin thing that you can buy and everything. I forget what it was going for, and I think there was some other items too that they advertise before the actual episode begins.
Yeah,
And they
see,
do it in the middle too.
that probably just proves my point. It's maybe more about pushing merchandise now than it was back in the day. And like I said too, there were other things about the newer stuff that's just hard for me to really get into because back in December when we usually have typically, and we've been doing this for 5 or so years, where we have our mega episodes where we're just covering all sorts of different things, and it's like a 3-4 hour long podcast episode. This last December, I was going to cover the Geed and Orb films, and I popped in, I think it was the Geed
Yeah, I think
with
you mentioned it
Milk
was
Creek
Geed.
set. And I was watching and I got so confused. I'm going, what is going on here? And then when I got done watching it, I realized, I probably needed to watch the series and that this movie was a sequel to that series. And I think I asked you about that, and I think you said, yeah, that's the case, that those films, like with Orb and Geet at
They're
least,
usually tied in with
they're
the show.
sequels. Yeah, they're sequels to those respective shows. They're not standalone films like, well, I don't know if I'll show up. Well, that's a sequel.
Whatever that was.
Like this, where it's standalone, and I mean, I couldn't tell you everything about it, but as a standalone film, I could still follow it pretty well for the most
I would
part.
at least say one of the other standalone Ultraman films that I think you can probably easily get into is Ultraman the Next, which came out in 2004, which is part of the Ultra N project or Ultra Nexus project. And I've seen that one several years ago, and I thought it was pretty good. It's sort of like kind of the I think they were trying to reboot or refresh the Ultraman character himself, and of course along with the redesign of the entire look of Ultraman himself, sort of kind of the new take of Ultraman. I think it was sort of a nice fresh take on the character. But unfortunately, I think from what happened that it wasn't quite as popular over in Japan there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm hoping happens, relatively soon, because I believe at Shout Factory they just started streaming Kamen Rider. Am I right? I think it's Shout Factory.
I believe so, and I think they created a specific channel for it, which is called Tokusatsu.
Uh-huh. And that's a series I want to
I think we should definitely start to get into. I know we've seen some of the special / episodes of at least the original and some of the like newer stuff every year at the GFEST channel.
Well, and that's the thing too. First of all, I'm hoping Shout Factory will eventually release a DVD or Blu-ray set of the original Kamen Rider series. But Kamen Rider to me seems it's similar to Ultraman in that I think I will love the earlier stuff. But again, like in previous GFEST when we've seen the in-house channel and they've shown some of the newer Kamen Rider stuff, kind of like with the newer Ultraman stuff, I kind of get turned off by the newer stuff because of emo characters, and everything once again seems like it's trying to push toys and other merchandise than anything else. And that is why I am again more of a fan of the earlier stuff. There just is a charm about those series. The characters are diverse in various ways, not just in gender but in personalities as well. And things were not what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't. The series was not designed around the idea of pushing toys and other merchandise. They were designed to be fun kid shows.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I love, uh, about the older stuff, not to mention
But
the practical effects. But like you were saying earlier, with the cards and the coins and all that, sure, it expands the mythos and mythology of this character, this ever expanding series, and it brings something unique to the table with each new series. But at the same time, again, I feel like it's they're designing it with the idea that we need to make sure we can sell toys of this as
well,
well.
and then two, if you can at least remember when we were kids back in the '90s and everything, when we watched some of our favorite cartoon shows, at the time you'll tend to see commercials, showing all these figures and toys and everything. It's like that's sort of the decade of when they were starting to realize, hey, we can make money in other avenues than just through TV, and that's sort of kind of how everything was starting to be more merchandised in the sort of sense, especially if you go
Yeah,
into today.
I mean it's understandable. I mean I've seen, and I think it was maybe within the in-house channel there, or somewhere else. But I've seen something where there's sort of this Ultraman theme park, I think it is, there in Japan. And
and
there's all this Ultraman roller coasters, all this stuff.
and
And
then
then
just a couple of
you have this store, just all sorts of toys and other
and
merchandise.
then
It's
just a
like,
couple of years ago, and
wow.
then just a couple of years ago, they just started the SubuCon or SuburagaCon there, and
Yeah,
then
I
I
mean,
know that
it's
they do some of the
just.
other conventions there related to Ultraman around December time.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Just first of all, once again, just seeing all that stuff, it continues to remind me how expansive the series is. I mean, Ultraman's going on, was it, I think 55 years now, I think it is. And, that's obviously a long time.
Uh,
But
it's 50, not counting Ultra Q with it coming out in '66. Officially, probably say 54.
54 years, I mean, still 5 decades. You're getting a new series initially every year, and then it probably was every couple of years. But still, that's a lot of series, and then you have these movies in between, eventually, as well as you kind of move further, especially into the 70s and the 80s. um, this universe, I get intimidated by it, and that's part of the reason too why I personally am like, I'm sticking with sort of the original stuff,
Or
basically
at
my
least
collection.
for me, I would probably at least say with this entire expansive universe, I would say at least just try to watch some of the original Showa Ultra series first, and then,
Oh
of
yeah.
course, starting out with Ultraman Tiga from '96, which is the start of the Heisei, and then on through modern day with Ultraman Z here.
Yeah, and I will eventually get to the newer stuff, but I'm still kind of apprehensive about it for the reasons I've already stated, because to me it seems like some of the charm that draws me to a lot of these earlier Ultraman series and even a lot of the Showa films. It just a lot of that seems to be gone with this newer stuff. And that's not to say that I think these are bad. It's just I think for me personally, it just may end up being something that I can't connect with as well. That maybe I may not be able to enjoy it as much as I do this earlier stuff. I will get to it because I've seen all the Godzilla movies. I've seen all this other stuff. Um, Hi, how are you? My cat Hershey. Um, I've seen all this other stuff, all the Godzilla and Gamera, and I'm looking to do the Rego and the Raiga stuff here soon. I just recently purchased those DVDs and Blu-rays and have yet to watch them. Um, I'm wanting to expand my exposure because I need my fix. I'm a Kaiju fan and Tokusatsu fan. I need my stuff. I want
But
some new stuff.
I think when you get around to the actual newer stuff, I think you'll probably tend to will enjoy it because I think they dive more into the character development of all the characters that are involved in these shows, and I think it tends to make things more continuous within that specific TV show, whereas some of these earlier ones, where it just seemed to be more or less like a one-off uh, from episode to episode. That's to me what it feels like when it comes to the earlier Ultraman shows. Whereas, in my opinion, when it comes to the newer ones, that they seemed to be more continual from episode to
There's
episode.
more continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I get too. The earlier stuff, though, there is continuity, but it's really loose. You'll occasionally get like maybe 2 or 3 parter episodes. I do remember the Gamora episodes from the original series. I think that was a 3-parter.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think
so.
there were maybe a couple other ones that were 2-parters, but I know the Gamora one was the longest one that was a 3-parter. But they all did connect. But yeah, I mean, you're not wrong in that the earlier episodes, by and large, were just sort of a monster of the week type of episode where it's okay, who's Ultraman gonna fight this time?
Hmm.
But again, kind of once you got to the end of that first Ultraman series, and you're ready to close that storyline out, now they're making callbacks to not just the very first episode, but some of the other episodes in between as well.
Hmm. But yeah, other than that, we're about 10 hours over our actual schedule here. I don't know if you wanted to continue on or possibly move on to our next topic. If
We
you got
can move
anything.
on to our next topic unless you or anyone else wants to share anything Ultraman related.
We'll just probably give them at least several seconds here, and if I can just at least bring up the schedule again of what we're going to be talking about again today.
It's a general Godzilla Tokusatsu
Yep,
discussion.
coming up next, and then right after that, we'll be discussing about our memories and potential future of GFEST, of what might be going on, especially with it moving over to the Hyatt O'Hare in Rosemont, just basically right across the street from where it's been held for many years over at the Crown Plaza Chicago O'Hare there. So otherwise,
All right.
looks like from what I'm seeing here, according to the chat, we don't have anything else.
All right. So we'll move on to general Godzilla slash Tokusatsu discussions. You went first yesterday,
I was going to say,
so I'm gonna.
since I started yesterday on the general topic, why don't you go ahead?
All right. So um, one of the things I really would like to talk about is, other than Ultraman, other fun Tokusatsu shows that we have seen. And I will go first with one of the shows. You and I went through this whole series for a while on our podcast. It's been a few years, but Iron King,
Oh yeah,
released in 1972.
I know.
Uh,
I know for like the first few episodes when we were actually doing this, like uh, reviewing the entire series earlier in our episodes of the DKM podcast, that like the first few episodes, it seemed to be, it's like we weren't really quite digging it up until a certain episode, then just got really interesting.
well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I will say it is definitely an Ultraman. I
Knockoff.
don't know, ripoff. Yeah, knockoff. That's more appropriate. It's definitely an Ultraman knockoff. And in fact, I think you can still get this series at a reasonable price over at Amazon. So
I'll
I
go
would
find
highly
out.
suggest. I would highly suggest people check it out. It is a unique series, and in fact, the hero Iron King is designed similarly to Ultraman. And at first, I thought it was campy, but realized that more than anything else, it's incredibly quirky because you have the two main characters of Goro Kirishima and Gintaro, and these guys are protagonists for the entire series. And uh-oh, no, my cat just created a bunch of. Oh no, hold on, I'm sorry.
But
They
just want to butt in a little bit here as far as the DVD for it. You can still get it over at Amazon here, and there's actually 4 left in stock, and you can get it for $13.77 at the moment.
and that's not bad. It is a 26, 28 episode series,
26, I
and
believe.
yeah, and I find this series also very unique because throughout that 26 episodes, it progresses through several different villain storylines. And it's not continuous in terms of having a central villain or set of villains. You have anywhere, I think, between 3 or 4 separate villains slash clans that are the main antagonists over the course of this relatively short series. And one of the things that makes this show very quirky, in my opinion, is this whole deal with Goro Kirishima needing water to
Oh,
rejuvenate
yeah.
himself. It's silly because it's obvious that that detail is in response to Ultraman, in which Ultraman needs sunlight to rejuvenate himself. Goro, who is Iron King, needs water. And he has this indicator light somewhere on him. I believe it's on top of his helmet, if I remember
No, it's
correctly,
right,
where
right on the chest, kind of on the same
on the
area.
chest, just like Ultraman, where it'll blink after a bit. And in fact, one of my complaints about the original Ultraman series was that I thought it didn't take too long for Ultraman's light to blink. If you think that is short, wait until you see Iron King. Iron King's light blinks within a matter of seconds, it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
into a battle, and you're always welcome Godzilla Productions, and you're he's always needing water. At the end of every battle, you will catch Goro by a stream or somewhere where there's water fountain, whatever, and he's drinking up water like it's about ready to disappear. And it's so goofy, but at the same time it's so charming because initially when I started watching this, I got annoyed by it because I thought this is just it's ridiculous. You know? But then as I started, going through the series, I'm like, I like these characters. uh, Goro is not only the main hero, so to speak, in terms of him being Iron King, but he's the comedy relief as well. And then Gintaro is more of this superstar guy. He's very suave and manly.
Who
Um,
can kick
and one of the
ass.
things, yeah, and one of the things that irritates me about Iron King, at least it did, was over the first half of the series, Gintaro was actually the hero. You would have Goro turn into Iron King, and Iron King would do most of the heavy lifting in the battle, but then Gintaro would end up doing a final blow that would
Yeah,
ultimately
with
destroy
his
the robot or the
long,
Kaiju
yeah, long rope or whip, and I think that was
whip.
one of the
Yeah,
main reasons why that we were sort of getting like really bored or sick
exactly.
and
'Cause it's
tired
weapons.
of the TV show when we were maybe about 4 to 5 episodes in with it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that when you first go through it, is really annoying because you're going, look, this is called Iron King. Yes, it's an Ultraman knockoff, but I want Iron King to save the day. I'm watching this because I want to see this superhero character fight these giant robots and other weird creatures and to save the day. And that eventually does happen as you get about the halfway point in the series, where I think even the producers of the show were even going, okay, we need to kind of um, make sure Iron King now is our ultimate hero. But out
I
of
can
the
remember both of us applauding when Iron King finally defeated a monster by himself without Kintaro's help.
right, yeah, like we just were like, all right, like we were actually just kind of blown away because
Yeah,
we got so used to Gintaro being the hero, and we're just kind of sighing. We're going, yeah, yeah, how is Gintaro gonna save the day this time? And then holy crap, Iron King actually was the one who did it this time. It's a very funny, unique series, and I highly suggest you checking it out. Like Jason said, it's going for like $13 and some odd cents over at Amazon.
there's four left in
It's
stock, so you better
get them
hurry.
while you can. It's a very fun series. If you're looking for something that is just fun, crazy tokusatsu fun, that is definitely a series to go check out.
Definitely.
Um, Another one I want to talk about is Red Baron.
Oh yeah.
This was released mid 1973. And if you enjoy giant robots, this is definitely a series you will want to check out. I enjoy the premise for the most part of this series. It involves the Iron Masked Party led by Dr. Devilar. Spooky. Stealing robots from different countries and turning them on the world. The Iron Masked Party has also built a few robots of their own. The Iron Masked Party uses Earth as a testing ground before turning their sights on the entire universe. And that there is a kind of a neat twist much later in the series, so I'm not going to spoil that for people, but it has something that did kind of surprise me when I first went through the series here. Man, it was 6 years ago I went through that series.
I think it's probably the same time for me too, because I know we
But
reviewed that show.
yeah, I think I did a general overview of that series. If it wasn't shortly after I concluded the series, it was definitely like our year end episode, I believe. It was kind of somewhere
Yeah, I
in
can't
there.
quite honestly remember, but I think did we review this after Iron King or before that?
It was before Iron King.
Okay, yeah, because I know we try to decide to do episode by episode discussions for the Tokuzone um, segment that we had at the time in the earlier.
Defunct Tokuzone segment. May have to bring that back.
I think, you know, speaking of which, I actually thought about this today since we've got our own DKM podcast show and the DKN commentary. I was thinking about we should do like a separate TV show, you know, called just Toku Zone. Just bring the nameage back and just talk everything Tokusatsu related. Because I think there's
DAIKAIJU presents
because I think that just needs its own entire show.
It does because, like we were talking about a moment ago with Ultraman, Ultraman alone is just so expansive. I mean,
Yeah, because we
it's
just
intimidating.
yeah, it's like we just don't even have the time to even talk about it in the DKM podcast, really.
Each of our podcasts would end up being like 2.5
Which
hours.
which originally was at the time.
It was, yeah, for a while, because even when we were covering the original Ultraman series, we were doing about 3 episodes at a time on average, and just discussing each episode, even though we kind of did abridged
Well, I
reviews.
think we did two
It
episodes.
added like an extra 45 minutes to each
Well, I think
podcast.
we did 2 episodes per episode.
Towards the end, we
Yeah.
did, because the way it was going to end, it just wasn't going to end the way that we had started. And on top of that, we were saying, yeah, like this is really padding out
And
our podcast.
sort of did the same thing when we were reviewing the Ultraman show. We tried to do two in the
Yeah.
Toku Zone segment.
Yeah. But getting back to Red Baron, many of the robot designs in the series are fun to some extent, but and they're also representative of the country they're originally from. What the Iron Mask Party does is they try to steal, or they, in fact, they do successfully steal robots from different countries that have built these robots, and they turn them on the world. And each robot, to some extent, sort of in design represents the country that they were built. So it's really unique to see some of the designs, and just in general, even some of the robots that the Iron Mask Party themselves build are really fun and unique. Again, if you enjoy giant robots and Transformers and that sort of stuff, it's a really fun series to watch. There is some nice miniature work, but the biggest drawback, in my opinion, of this series is that miniatures are still very sorely lacking. Um, a majority of the battles take place in barren locations. They try to spice it up a little bit by adding like some cliffs or big mountains or what have
I
you.
think I think I'll
Um,
probably say the same thing to Iron Cane as you when you discussed about that
Iron King's
early.
very
Yeah,
similar too, but I thought Red Baron looked more barren, definitely more
pun
rocky.
intended.
Actually, no, I have no pun intended. um, but like, think of to some degree, excuse me, the ending battle of Godzilla versus Megalon, where how barren it looked. Um, but with Red Baron, they try to add some hills or mountains, but it just looks more rocky than anything else. And that's, in my opinion, the biggest drawback. And I don't know much about the series. I haven't been able to find much information on it. Um, but my guess is that budget was the obvious reason that, these sets couldn't look prettier, and why miniatures couldn't be built. And I think, too, time had a lot to do with it as well. It's a TV series. They probably had to knock out a show, excuse me, an episode probably every, if not every couple days, every week or something like that, I'm
Mhm.
sure. Um, because it's very, some of those are have very grueling schedules. Pacific Rim one, exactly. Exactly. Uh, and I know there was a sequel to this series as well. I forget what it's called. And then there
Yeah,
was an anime
let me try to bring that up
that
while you're
was
talking.
connected with um, these two live action shows as well. I have not seen the anime, nor have I seen the sequel series to Red Baron. But again, you enjoy giant robots, and seeing robots,
Okay,
beat up on each
so
other.
the let's see here, Red Baron TV series. Oh, they did make one in the early to mid '90s, a remake of
Oh, interesting.
Red Baron. And if I can bring up, let's see. Okay, so after Red Baron, it was followed by Super Robot Mac Baron, and
Okay.
then it was followed by Gambaron, or Little Superman Gambaron,
Hmm.
and that's
Interesting.
also a live action show.
And Red Baron, the series that I'm talking about now, you can also find that officially released here in the States. It's subtitled. That's where I got it, on Amazon
Same here,
here
yeah.
7, 8 years ago, for reasonable pricing. I find that weird, though, that the company that licensed Red Baron didn't pick up the sequel series. It's just kind of
It's a bit
strange.
strange.
Yeah. Are there any particular TV series you would like to discuss?
Um,
You talk about Specter Man all the time.
yeah, Specter Man. If
Oh,
if I can bring that up, it's a really fantastic show. It's basically sort of like, I mean, it seems a little bit similar to like Iron King, maybe, but not like the whole story and everything. If I can bring that up here, but let's see here. Spectre Man. It's a uh, it it aired in January of 1971 and all the way to March of 1972 with a total of 63 episodes. And a Spectre Man is a person from outer space. Is disguised as a human by the name of Joji George Gamo, and let's see here, and I'm trying to figure out what the name of the villain is, but the villain is like a sentient monkey in a way. it's really awesome. I think it was, but his name was Doctor Something. If I can remember, Doctor Gory. That's what it is. That's the name of
I
the
like that
that's the
name.
name of the villain. It. I think you would really enjoy seeing Spectre Man.
I have that series. I have owned it on DVD for, man, it has to be like 4 years or something at least now, and I just have not watched it.
Yeah, it's a definite one to see.
By the way, too, I cannot believe I didn't put this in my notes. Johnny Sacco and his flying
That one there
robot.
too. I remember for the longest time I sat on my butt holding out as far as watching it, and then I uh, finally gotten around to doing it and watched almost the entire set except for the final DVD. And I think I sat around on it for maybe a few more months until I finally finished it up like a few months or so ago.
I kept harassing you because I'm like, dude, not only is this show really good, it's 26 episodes. You can get that done within a matter of a week when if you
Mm-hmm.
tried. But it's really fun. It's what it is. It's about this young boy who was recruited by a group called Unicorn to fight
Such a good name.
the the Gargoyle Gang, which is led by Emperor Guillotine, and Johnny ends up kind of being the main, I guess, commander for Giant Robot throughout the series. And Emperor Guillotine sends out different robots over the course of the series, to try to destroy Japan and all that. And then they fight Giant Robot. And there are some unique villains over the course of the series as well. Emperor Guillotine, of course, is kind of the main, um, kind of the main baddie, of course, throughout the series. But then there's one called, I think his name is Fangar. Uh, he's this villain who is in sort of a stereotypical prison outfit, black and white striped. He's got a red cape. He's got this incredibly huge head that is mostly bald in the front, and then he's got black hair throughout the rest, and he's got these protruding top
Oh
teeth,
yeah,
front
I know who
teeth,
you're talking about.
and it is so much fun. It's ridiculous, but it's so much fun. And that one too has been officially released here in the States too. Check it out. It is such a fun
But yeah,
series.
I want to read you a little bit of the plot to Spectre Man here. Um, Banished from the peaceful and highly advanced simian planet E, the mutant mad scientist Dr. Gory and his brutish gorilla-like assistants Karas, or Ra in the Japanese version, search for a new world to rule after Gory's plot to conquer planet E had been foiled by its government. Traveling to Earth in their flying saucer, the blonde alien ape man is captivated by its beauty but appalled by its inhabitants' misuse of its environment, leading to severe pollution, a huge topic back when the series was made, since Tokyo was the most polluted city in the world at the time. So humankind must be quickly conquered if this planet is to remain inhabitable, or habitable, whichever. Gory therefore plots rather ironically to use the pollution that is plaguing Earth to create horrible, giant rampaging monsters to wipe out and or enslaving mankind. Hope comes in the form of the Nebula 71 star, an artificial satellite resembling twin planet Saturn's, joined together that observes Earth's incognito. Fearing that Gory may eventually make Earth uninhabitable, they dispatch Specter Man, their super cyborg agent, to battle the menace of the mad ape man. Specter Man disguises himself as a Japanese man named Joji Gamo to walk among the humans to scout out Gory's weekly menace for the Nebula 71 star. He works with a government-run group called the Pollution G-Men, run by Chief Kurata. This group investigates phenomena involving pollution, but they do not, until late in the show's run, have the facilities to handle giant monsters. So, unbeknownst to them, their comical yet mysterious teammate Joji disappears on them, only to help them as Specter Man.
Interesting. It definitely does sound like a series I would enjoy. I mean, similar to me harassing you about Johnny Sacco back in the day, you've been harassing me over the years about Specter Man. Like I said, I've had that set sitting on my shelf.
Watch Specter Man, damn it!
Haven't got to it. I just haven't done it.
Well, once we get done with DAIKAIJU FEST, watch Specter Man. That'll be your assignment.
Well, it's not quite that easy. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I got young children that I have to take care of. So it's not that easy to just sit down and watch a TV show. But unless there's a different series you would like to add, I believe it's your turn to pick a topic. Actually, let's go to the folks in the discussion. If there's anything anybody in the discussion would like for us to discuss and all that, please feel free to bring up something. Otherwise, we're going to go to Jason's going to pick a topic that he has already selected here. So we'll just kind of give it a few minutes because, again, of the delay. But yeah, they're just a lot of wonderful TV shows. What did you miss? So we started off the day here talking about Ultraman, and basically that's what we talked about for about a good hour, 10 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to bring up the schedule here again. So we just got done finishing our thoughts on the Ultraman franchise at the beginning of DAIKAIJU FEST, and then currently right now we're in the general Godzilla Tokusatsu discussion. And then right after that we'll be talking about our memories, and then the future of GFEST there.
Yeah, so basically it was Ultraman and just other shows besides Ultraman that we've seen that we have enjoyed as well. But yeah, TV, yeah, sadly, it did kind of ruin it did ruin the Kaiju Tokusatsu film industry. And my understanding is it didn't just hurt that particular genre. It hurt movies
in general.
across the board in Japan as well. And but there again, there's a silver lining to all of this. You get all these wonderful TV shows like we just talked about. There's just a lot of wonderful stuff there. Pacific Rim. All right, S. Will, is there anything specific maybe about Pacific Rim you would uh, like to discuss? You missed the first movie feel. Are you saying that the second movie didn't do a good job of replicating what the first film did?
Yeah, I think the one thing that might have a little bit of a gripe when it comes to the second one is that they set it 20 years after the first one, and I kind of wish that they would have at least have done it maybe a few years after Pacific Rim, because the first one came out, what was it, 2013?
It was 2013, yeah.
2013, and then the second one was
2018.
2018. So yeah, I mean, you got 5 years right there, and it's basically the same amount of span between the 2014 Godzilla and then King of the Monsters, where they basically did all that in real time as far as many years going by. They probably should have done the same thing when it came to Pacific Rim 2, instead of just doing a huge time skip 20 years after the original movie.
Uprising, FX recently has been showing a lot of, and I don't know if it's because of the 4th of July holiday or what, but they've been showing a lot of contemporary action science fiction type films, including a bunch of the Marvel Cinematic films. But they had Pacific Rim Uprising on here the other day, and I watched a little bit of it, and it's the first time in a while that I've seen anything related to any of those Pacific Rim films. Will there be more like part one? Ah, boy, that's tough to say, because my understanding is that this second film didn't do as well critically, and even financially. It did not do as well, and there were hopes of there at least being a trilogy because of the way the second film ended, and right now it's not looking like that's going to be the case. And I know some fans had issues with the ending a little bit, because again, as we were talking yesterday about the Monsterverse, Legendary between 2013, 2014, and 2018, when Pacific Rim 2 came out, was purchased by a Chinese company, as one individual in our chat said it was by Wanda Media. And a lot of people thought that because now Legendary is owned by a Chinese company and there have been some tensions with China and Japan in recent memory, the way that that final battle took place in part 2 was more of kind of a jab at the Japanese. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but that's what I've been hearing a lot of fans believe happened. And it's, I don't know. My understanding is because of the fact that financially this second film didn't do as well. I would love a third one. I would love more of these films. I just don't think we're going to get that third one, at least not anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
All the different breaches and monsters was great in part 1. Yeah. Look, I'm a fan of Uprising. I have been one of those individuals, and I may be in the minority, I'm not quite sure. When I went to GFEST that year, I felt like I was maybe in the minority party of being someone who really enjoyed that second film. I will admit, though, that yes, it's Guillermo del Toro, the way he wrote and structured that first film was genius. I remember clear as day when the first film came out in 2013. A couple buddies of mine and we were going to go see a film, and I don't remember what it was, uh, but we the film we wanted to go see was not actually showing. Like it left the theater a day or two earlier, and then we decided to go see Pacific Rim instead because we just wanted to hang out and do something. So we did Pacific Rim, and my buddies who are not kaiju fans knew I was, and they're like, "Hey, like you should like this, right?" And I'm like, "Well, I was gonna go see it, but I was gonna go by myself because I know you guys don't care for this stuff." And, well, let's just go see it anyway. And so we went and saw it, and even they came out really enjoying Pacific Rim. And there is, in terms of the acting and the story and just how it's structured, that first one is really good. But the second one's really good too. Not as good as the first, but still really good. How about the Netflix series for Pacific Rim? Last I heard, that was greenlit. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure
don't.
as far as what's
I
come
haven't
of
really
that
heard
since.
much about it since the announcement.
Yeah. Um, if you are into tie-in material, if you haven't already, I know a company, I want to say it's IDW or someone did at least a brief comic series for Pacific Rim. But also I want to point you towards a novel. Pacific Not Pacific, specifically, a couple of tie-in novels. One of them I did read, the other one I did not. Um, the one I did read I thought was still pretty darn good. If I can find it here. Uprising. Uh, Uprising Ascension. That was a good book. Um, I would recommend that. Some people may not care too much for it because of kind of how it's structured. And usually, sort of prequel novels aren't. Prequel novels usually are not that good. My experience has been pretty true of that. Like, I read the Independence Day Resurgence prequel novel. I believe it was called Independence Day Crucible. I got um, 40, 50 pages into that and I quit reading it. It was not good at all. And what I ended up doing was I went online to see what uh, the synopsis was for the whole novel, and people were saying literally nothing happens. You get, yes, an expanded story of what happens to Jeff Goldblum's character, but there's no real alien invasion story or anything like that within the story. Ascension is not like that. It's not a full-blown um, sort of telling like the actual Pacific Rim and Pacific Rim Uprising, but it fills in some of the gaps, and I think it's really interesting. It dives more into the characters, but there is actual action involved as well. Which kaiju were our favorites from Pacific Rim? My gosh, I mean, I liked all of them. I liked all the designs. I liked them all. I like what's it? Shark? No, Knifehead, I believe, is the one that opens up the first movie. Knifehead, I really liked that one. I liked, gosh, the hammerhead looking one at the end, the big baddie at the end. It starts with an S.
Slither or
I liked
Slather or
him,
something like that.
something like that. Um, and I liked I liked the kaiju as well in the second film as well. I know some complained that uh, unlike the first film, which took inspiration from actual animals, that the second one was more just straight up design whatever kaiju design comes to your head. I actually didn't mind that. It reminded me of Ultraman in some respects, very Ultraman-esque. You just design whatever comes to you. But yeah, I I enjoy it. I just think yeah, it was good. Raijin. I'm trying to remember. Raijin, is he the one? Is he the one that had that mouth where the jaws were on either side of his head? Is that Raijin? I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen movies in a little while, but I know that name. That name's from the second film.
But
Yes, all right. I got it right. I haven't completely forgotten yet. But yeah, the Pacific Rim duology it's a fun series. I really like it. It's just too bad we probably aren't going to get that third film at all anytime soon.
So, if you don't have anything else, I can probably move on to my little discussion or topic here.
Trespasser was good too, yeah. Slattern, there we go. I knew it started with an S. Slattern. I thought Slytherin at first. I'm like, no, that's a Harry Potter, like, faction. All right, Jason, why don't you take us into your topic? We can kind of make it a bridge if that's okay with you, because I have a feeling the GFEST, the topic we're going to close today out with, is going to be maybe a decent lengthy one.
So, yeah, for my next topic, I was going to basically do a review of some NECA figures. So basically, I'm not going to be doing just one, but two figures. And I've got them right here. And the first one that I'm going to be doing is this one. It's the 2019 Godzilla variant from King of the Monsters. And it's the version where he is pretty much all painted. I'm not sure if you can actually see it, but I'll be
blue.
Yeah, so painted blues, and you can see part of the picture right there. I know it's a little bit dark, but I'll be eventually bringing it out of the box here, so it's going to be another unboxing here, so to speak. And so bringing it out of the box here, and obviously you can see the other 2019 version I've got up on the shelf right there, along with Mothra. And just by the looks of it here and just seeing it up close, it's pretty nicely detailed in a way. I really like how they did the sculpt for the Godzilla, and I think they did quite a few of the nice little details there. Can't really see much of the blue there. Whoops. Oopsie.
That figure's worth nothing.
Yeah. The little fire explosion thing was in a separate little container thing on its own there. But so that I'm trying to get this in a decent, nice light there. There we go. I really like the paint job on this here. And bringing it to full cam there, you can see definitely I really like the details in the paint job. And then with his eyes, I really like how it's like you don't really see much of the pupils there. I'm not sure if you can try to get it adjusted. There we go. It's sort of like he's kind of like the GMK version of Godzilla there. And I really like it. And it comes obviously with his atomic ray here, and then if I can get this off the floor, the little explosion thing here too. So it's kind of a nice little add-on to it, and then obviously just need to assemble the tail. There, it's a really decent looking figurine from what I'm seeing here. But did you have anything that you wanted to bring up?
I own just the straight up regular looking
Yeah, like the
2019
one I've
Godzilla
got
from
over here.
NECA. Yeah, that's a cool figure. I have that in my den upstairs. And then I bought the Burning Godzilla. I gave that to my son. Hold on one second. I think he has that down here. I'll show that if he's got that down
But
here.
yeah, it's like this one's probably, I would say, basically the same sculpt as the regular 2019 Godzilla, and it seems like they've got a little bit of the maybe some of the silver paint job and then some of the other shades of blue painted on to not only the dorsal fin but basically throughout the entire figure. You can see some subtles and apparent uh, splashes of various colors of blue throughout the entire figure.
Yours is blue. Here's the
Nice.
here's the orange red one. This is that also that other it's really cool. I thought about keeping it myself, but I'm like, you know what? I technically don't need two 2019 Godzillas, so I'm gonna give this one to my son. He'll really, he'll really like and appreciate that one. But yeah, I mean, I like the sculpt. NECA unfortunately had a couple of their figures that I thought weren't so great, like the '84 Godzilla. I thought was probably their worst.
Yeah,
The
because
GMK
I know that
one
they had to
isn't
go
great
back and
either.
redesign it a little bit. Especially, I think probably one of the biggest gripes, and I think you mentioned about it too, was one of the toes that
Target, yep.
was really long.
Yeah, like the plates, the dorsal plates were really small. The foot claws were just obnoxiously long. It was not. They had some of the design. Um, they had some of the design elements there, but in terms of some of the finer details, they just kind of screwed up on that. The 84 reissue is one of their best figures. I heard that too, but then even then, I heard some people even complaining about that one. Um,
Well, it's like
I don't know. I
well, it's like right now, currently at my Target, they just have at least a few from different movies. They didn't have like the ones that are like in the plastic, kind of the packaging like that one does. But they most of them that they only come in the boxes, unfortunately. But yeah, it's like this one is from Target, along with the next one I'll be showing here, and I think this one with tax and everything was a little over $25 over at Target. But yeah, it's a definite awesome addition to your collection if you're into more of the like the NECA or the Tomodachi Nation figures like the SH Monster Art line of figures that they make. And I know I've got a SH Monster Art Burning Godzilla from the Godzilla vs. Destroyer movie, and I still have that in its own original box.
Well, that's because that's my problem with SH Monster Arts is those figures are so ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And I've always called NECA sort of the poor man's SH Monster Arts Godzilla figures. Because by and large, in many respects, the sculpts are very similar, and so are their articulations. I think maybe the SH Monster Arts may have a few more articulation points,
Yeah,
perhaps,
because I
and maybe actually come with more accessories. But NECA, with a few exceptions, has always come out, I thought, with pretty high quality figures. I mean, these things, anybody who has owned something like these are heavy. I mean, these are not
oh
cheapos.
no,
And for,
definitely
you
not.
know, $25 or something like, and the detail and the paint, these things are still by and large really good
Yeah,
figures for the most
yeah,
part.
because I think if I remember reading uh, from my 2019 regular one, and I think maybe this one here too. Uh, yeah, it says over 25 points of articulation according to the box
And that's
here.
still a lot.
And then it says measures 12 inches head to tail, hinge job, blast accessory, so on and so forth. Collect them all. But But yeah,
I own the 62 Godzilla from King Kong versus Godzilla. That is one of their better ones as well. I do like that one.
it's funny you actually brought that up. Because I'm going to be doing a little
Hey!
unboxing of the 62 King Goji here. And I was sort of trying to decide between if I wanted to get this one or the 1964 Mosu Goji that Target had.
You can't go wrong with either one.
Yeah.
Both are pretty cool.
And this was actually the very last King Goji that the Target that I go to had in stock. So I was like, if it's here by the next day, I'm gonna pick it up. So I did. And so
Nothing wrong with $15 vinyls.
yeah, definitely
Nothing wrong with
and
that.
this is what it looks like on the cover and the actual figurine itself here. Of course, I'll be bringing it out here. It's a really interesting sculpt that NECA has done here. And get this opened up. There we go. And gotta make sure that there's no other accessory plastic things behind.
Yeah,
the
you gotta
figure
make sure you don't
too.
drop
Yeah.
this.
And
You've already devalued one figure. You don't need to devalue a
well,
second one.
I think the 2019 Godzilla is still in good shape there from what I'm seeing. And so here is King Goji out of the box there.
The one difficulty I have with all of these NECA
Is the
figures,
tail.
regardless of whichever, the tail. When I put this Burning Godzilla together for my son back in the spring, I soaked, the ball joint. I have a kettle where I boil water, and I boiled some water, and that thing gets really hot. Like, the water is aggressively boiling after a while, and it turns off automatically. So I waited till it turned off, and I dunked the ball joint in a mug. It still was not that easy to put on.
It was literally the same thing for me too. But going back to the sculpt for King Goji here, I really like how they try to resemble it as close as they possibly can. And I really like the paint job that they did with this too. I would say maybe my only little gripe when it comes to this figurine is that if you can probably actually see it here a little bit if it can focus. There we go. It seems to be like he has maybe a little bit of an underbite in a way there, but other than that, I really dig how his atomic ray looks, where it's just basically almost clear, but it has some instances of maybe a little bit of white paint on there, and of course it seems to be some gray in there as well. And yeah, I'm really digging these figurines here.
I like the fact that NECA now is starting to add some accessories.
Yeah, definitely.
To their figures, because initially that wasn't the case. Which was fine. I mean, I was fine with the figure, but now they're adding a lot of times, at least with the Godzilla figures, like the fire blast or the atomic ray, I should say.
Whereas for the 2019, it came with not only the atomic ray, but it came with like the actual explosion itself. Whereas in this one, it just only comes with just the atomic ray blast.
It's still cool.
Yeah.
It fits in the mouth very well too, because I tried it out on mine. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. And I probably would say out of the two that I've shown here, I think I probably would go for this one. I think I am really liking how this one looks so far. Even though I really like the paint job on this on the 2019 Godzilla variant that I just recently bought here, but I just really like how King Goji here that they made really looks, and it looks really similar to the actual King Goji suit.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved the 62 Godzilla, and a lot of that is just because it looks so much more dinosaurian than the other ones, I thought anyways. I really like that. I really do like that design of it.
Yeah. Otherwise, I give props to NECA for what they've have done here. Excuse me, so far. So otherwise, if
They've definitely upped their game just even in the last like 2 years.
yeah, definitely. So if there's anything else that anyone wants to discuss as far as these particular figurines, so is there a bunch of Godzilla stuff at Target these days? Hard to find NECA TMNT stuff. Well, I know at my Target over here that put this down. That they do carry the 12-inch Bandai Godzilla from Godzilla Final Wars. I think they've got at least maybe 2 or 3 of them. They used to have like one of those kind of the bigger stuffed, kind of fat-looking Godzilla there, along with some of the other stuffed
stuffed
pop culture stuff. But
I got one of those for my son a couple of years ago.
I didn't see one there the last time I was there, and and then they have these little kind of miniature figurines in boxes where you can get. I think it was the legendary version, or no, it was the Earth Godzilla from the anime, and then they had one of the third stage of Shin Godzilla, and then the first form of Shin Godzilla. Those were the ones I saw, and then they used to carry the plastic package versions of NECA, but it seems like I didn't see those right now. But they only have just the boxed versions that you saw there. They had like most of them. They had the burning Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Destroya, and then they had a few from the 64 Mothra vs. Godzilla, and then obviously the last of the King Goji one that I just bought, and then they have one more of the GMK Godzilla there. So those were the only things that I saw there, and from the other Targets, they probably had maybe the same amount, maybe more as far as the NECA figures, and sometimes it just sort of varies store by store, obviously.
Yeah. All right. So, wow. Today, I swear, it's going by more quickly than yesterday. So with that, we're going to end our final day of DAIKAIJU Fest talking about GFEST. It's the reason why Kaiju Conline's going to be happening this weekend, and why we are here.
And heck, today would have been the first day of GFEST 27.
It would have been, yep. Do we like the Shin Godzilla figures? I don't own any of the NECA ones. Jason does. I only have the irregular Bandai. The Bandai one's decent.
I know I own not only the Bandai, but the NECA one as well. And I do own, and I can probably just go quickly grab it here, this red giant version of Shin Godzilla. And I can quickly go grab that here.
Yeah, but it's, you want the Shin with purple accents. I can't remember. Jason got one. I don't know if he's got the purple accents. We're going to see here in a moment.
So, yeah, this is what it is. I would say.
I thought you were getting the NECA one.
Nope. Yeah, my NECA one is right over there. on
Does
that
it
show.
have the purple accents?
No, nope.
Okay.
But this one, I have to say, I think it's by far the most expensive Godzilla figurine slash sculpt that I've gotten so far, and I think I've spent $225 for this bad boy here. It's like even though I didn't, it's like both of us don't really care much for the movie, but I do like the design nonetheless.
The design's pretty decent. There are things about it I'm kind of ho-hum about, but there are parts about it that I think are cool too.
Mm-hmm.
But getting into just G-Fest, we kind of are going to spend kind of our final 50 minutes or so here discussing just some of our memories of G-Fest. And anybody in the chat who has ever gone to G-Fest, please share some of your memories and stuff too. And one of the things we kind of want to talk about too as we get to wrapping this up is sort of, um, you know, we're starting a new chapter hopefully next year in G-Fest. We're going to be at a different hotel within the same
Yeah, basically
area.
about a block away, if I can remember.
Yeah, within the same general area, but different hotel. Um,
Which I'm kind of sad about.
well, yeah, like
So used to
you and
being in
I
the Crown Plaza.
exactly. Well, if this pandemic hadn't happened, this would have been our ninth consecutive convention. Where does the time go? I
Right?
mean, I still remember when I still remember the first time we went. It just was. I hate to use a word that Apple uses an awful lot, but it was a magical experience. I mean, um, the first two times we went, I mean, it was something else. And I mean, every time we've gone, it's been fun. The only thing that you and I had kind of complained a little bit in recent years about how Jason got that figure at G-Fest,
I got
actually.
this like literally on the last day. I think it was two G Fests ago. So it'd be
Yeah,
G Fest 25, maybe
yeah.
24.
Evangelion, I have never really seen it, so I don't have any opinion on it.
I've seen the anime many years ago, but I've sort of forgotten how that show went, to be honest. But I know I've seen it before.
hmm Um, but with G-Fest, you and I had kind of been complaining in recent years that we kind of wanted a break, and well, we're kind of getting a break forced upon us
Basically, yeah.
right now. But like G-Fest channel right now has been streaming footage from previous G-Fests since 7 p.m. Central Time yesterday, and I watched a little bit of that footage this morning. And I have to say that I kind of got a little teary-eyed. Like, I realized sitting there as I was watching this footage, even if we didn't have this pandemic and we just maybe sat this one out, I actually think I would be pretty darn sad that I didn't go because I just that was something you and I don't get to see each other in person that
Mm-hmm.
often because you live in Minnesota, I live in mid Michigan. It's not that easy for us to just get together, but
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that you and I enjoy. The Crown Plaza Hotel was always really good. I thought we got to meet a bunch of people there over the years in terms of staff, the location of things with
Mm-hmm.
restaurants
Yeah,
and what have you. Everything was in
it
walking
was pretty
distance.
convenient for where it was located. I mean, you got the entertainment district there with many
Matt
restaurants.
Frank is extraordinary. Got to talk to him a few
Yeah,
times
with many
too.
restaurants, and you got the AMC theater there, and comedy shows, and then of course you got the fashion outlet of Chicago mall there, and then just within the last couple of years, the Chicago Dogs baseball team was formed, and then build a stadium across the interstate there, and then of course you had have Dave and Buster's from walking distance too. So you got many things within walking distance.
Yeah, and for you and I, we didn't realize it the first couple times we were there that we were creating a tradition. The first time we went there in 2012, we thought this was maybe going to be a one and done deal, or at least one and done for a while, then come back. Because initially I wasn't going to go. You had brought up the idea of going because you were saying Akira Takarado was going to be one of the special
Yeah,
guests
that was
that
basically
year
the main.
at GFEST 19.
Yeah, that was basically the main reason for us going was Akira Takarada
Yeah.
coming, because I know he came there a couple years before, but I know we sort of thought about that, but we were like, let's just hold off for a while. And then a couple years later, we found out that he was coming back again, and then it's like, let's go.
Yeah, and I didn't think I was initially going to go, and then you check, and then like a couple weeks later, I gave in and I said, okay, let's go, because what was going on with me at that time was later that year, in fact, like 3 months from that point, I was getting married. And then shortly after coming back from GFest, I had to get packed and ready to move into a different apartment. And I literally, that first evening after we came back from that first GFest, I started taking some things off my walls and wrapping them and packing them
Yeah, because
away.
we had to leave on like mid Sunday. There, right on the final day, like during the middle of the final day. There, unfortunately, weren't able to stay
I can
there.
post that link here. Let me go to Facebook here.
But yeah, and then I think the year after we started staying the whole 3 days of the entire G-Fest event.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of incredible memories there. I mean, it just, like I said, we didn't realize at the time that this was going to be an ongoing thing for a while. And the funny thing is that after like GFest 21, because we didn't necessarily think that was
It was sort of like
you know,
our least liked one that we.
yeah, we thought maybe we just needed to get away for a while. That a lot of the glimmer and the sheen may have
It's sort of worn
worn
off by then.
off. And it does after
Yeah.
a while. I mean, look, when you do anything after a certain number of times, the novelty does wear off. I'm still looking for that GFest link here. It's just stuff is taking a bit to load here. But it's, I realized again that, hey, we still found ourselves going. Every year. We're like, maybe this is going to be our last G-Fest for a while. And then we go next year. Yeah, maybe this is going to be our last G-Fest for a while. We kept going. And it's become an annual thing of what we do. Hold on here. The link. I've had a couple here on the
So,
chat that doesn't always take. Let me try again.
what are you trying to look for specifically?
I got it. I'm just trying to get it sent. Because sometimes the chat won't send things that I typed. I had typed something earlier that actually didn't. Hold on, let me. Doggone it. Okay,
The magic of
that's
internet.
my. There. That's me, but that's the Facebook. um, that's the Facebook thing there. Right now they're showing. I'm trying to remember who. It's Damon Foster is on the panel along with Robert Scott Field, and I'm not sure. I think that's Brent Hominick. I'm not quite sure who that individual is, but yeah, man. I'm actually really sad because it didn't hit me until Wednesday that this is actually happening. Like, There is no GFest this year because typically in recent memory over the last 5 or so years we have gone on a Wednesday, come back on a Monday morning, and then a couple of times we've gone on a Monday morning and come back the following Monday morning.
Well, we just did that this last G Fest where we stayed there literally for a week, and I think too we thought it's like I know the first time we said let's not do this again, and then I was like, last time it's like why don't we make it another weekend? You're a little bit hesitant at the time, and then it's like,
Well,
oh, let's do it. And then when it came about, and after the end too, it's like, boy, it really went fast. But then at the same time too, I kind of figured out the reason why I didn't want to do it for a full week.
well, and the thing is, too, I mean, just outside of time going by really fast, it gets kind of
Hmm.
expensive to stay for a week because we only get the discount for a couple of days while we're there. And otherwise, we're paying full price for the hotel, even though we split it. But it gets expensive. You're paying for food, you're paying for the
Hmm.
room, um, that sort of thing too. And I mean, you're eating. We would always pack some food as well to kind of help offset some of the cost of
I
food, so we
usually try
weren't
to
eating
bring
out all
some of
the time and
the.
spending
I usually
money.
try to bring some of the dehydrated, like packaged foods and
Yeah,
stuff.
see, you're really weird that way. Like you're just kind of this weird nerdy guy. I'm gonna bring my space food and
Well, I mean, you got
eat.
basically you got a full meal right there instead of bringing an entire freaking microwave like I did that one year.
Look, that microwave came in handy. I brought that toaster oven at least once or twice as well, and we made pizzas
Well,
too.
yeah.
I mean that worked.
Well, we brought along some of those Lunchables, like pizzas and sandwiches and stuff too.
Yeah, but those never filled you up.
But I think last year, I think it was one of the times where we ate out the most, particularly over at the Chicago Fire Oven.
Yeah, and it's incredibly surreal to find ourselves in this position, even though it just seems like I've been going through the motions, and by and large, I think that's what a lot of us have been doing during the pandemic, is we've just kind of been going through the motions. Every day we kind of gotten into a new routine. We're doing things differently than what we were before, but we've just kind of are on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we just don't think too much about what we're doing anymore. We're like, okay, well, this is going to be going on for quite a while. This is what I got to do, and how I'm just going to go about my life now for a while. And like I said, it wasn't until I just took a moment here 2 days ago on Wednesday and I sat down, like, at the very least, we would have been heading over to Chicago right now and preparing for this year's G Fest. And it's just since Wednesday, it has been so surreal, excuse me, for me, that it's just, I feel empty. I feel empty. I feel a little depressed. Um, and like I said, I got a little teary-eyed this morning when I watched a little bit of that uh, footage that the GFEST Facebook page has been showing, and it's just it's it's different,
And
obviously.
one of the things,
That
I'm gonna miss a lot uh, this year is that every time when we get to Chicago and before we leave, that we always take the time to have lunch over at the Five Roses pub. There, that's sort of like
Yeah, it's a
our
great place
own
to have
little
lunch if you've never
tradition.
had lunch there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just the Crown Plaza, I know a lot of people, and I think to some degree rightfully so, have complained that the air conditioner has had issues in some of the ballrooms over the last two
That and
conventions.
then the
But by and
elevators.
large, it's been very
Hmm.
accommodating.
It's like
But
not only
yeah, it
the air
just
conditioner, but the elevators as well. Seemed like they have a
the
little bit of
elev
the problems.
the elevators and the
Yeah.
escalators. They've had more problems with the elevators and the escalators over the years, at least since we've been going, than they had with the air conditioning. The air conditioning has only become a recent phenomenon
Mm-hmm.
that they've had issues with. But you and I always speculated, going back to our third or fourth G-Fest, that it's very possible that in the not so distant future, they were going to have to look into moving to a larger hotel. We just didn't know if that was still going to be in the Chicago area, if that was going to be in a completely different city. The interesting thing, though, is that year after year, it kept going back to the Crown Plaza, and I didn't complain
Mm-hmm.
because, at least in terms of for me to commute here from mid Michigan to Chicago, it is almost a straight, simple drive for me. I can do it almost without a GPS. I mean, it's very few exits
Yeah, it's
and turns I have to
it's about
take,
this. It's
and
about the same for me too. But then once I get off of 94 onto 294 to get to the hotel, there's quite a few areas where I have to take an exit, go through a pay toll, and then kind of go towards the O'Hare Airport, and then I have to make a couple loops to get to the other highway in order to get off the exit where the Crown Plaza was on. So there's quite a bit of turnpikes where I had had to use the GPS. Otherwise, it was a pretty much almost straightforward thing right up to the very end there.
yeah, and I mean, it just it sucks. I mean, it just sucks. Even though you, like I said, you and I had been talking off and on. Um, uh, by the way, S. Will, seriously, check out Kaiju Online starting tomorrow. They will have Artist Alley and some of the vendors there. Check it out. I mean, you will be able to buy things. Check it
Mm-hmm.
out. Um,
But
but
um, gosh, yeah, it's like I know when we potentially talked about like if like that with the way how GFEST was growing as far as attendance wise year by year, that we were um, like they should probably potentially start looking for a bigger place, but where? And I know like over the years since we sort of talked about that, I just did some research and here and there is like which hotel would sort of be right around the same size, maybe bigger to hold the convention and stuff. But I didn't really think that Hyatt would be the official final uh, pick for where the next G Fest will be held at. I think from this day forward.
yeah, and I I'm just kind of typing a response here in the chat. Um, so you go ahead
But
and
yeah, it's
just keep
like
talking here from.
according to from what Nathan here says that he bought a
Well, that's
yeah
why I'm writing a
from a toll
response to.
payer thing for my car and haven't had the chance to use it since this year got canceled. Yeah, it's like I literally did the same thing when I started driving myself because the first couple years Ken and I drove in the same car together where I had to where he was at the time the first 2 years he was going to college and I would meet up with him and stay at least a few days over at his place, and then we would drive together over to Chicago via Interstate 88 from the west there until he moved to Michigan,
Fellow
and then got
Michigander.
my own vehicle. Then we started driving on our own, so I had to get my own paid toller thing as well, where Kent, his wife, had one of those pay toller things because she worked over in Chicago at one point.
She lived in
Yeah.
Chicago for a
Mm-hmm.
while.
So you already had one, so it's like I had to get my own. But yeah,
Well, and the thing is with those toll deals, they don't expire for quite a while. I mean, those things are good. I think for
I
unless they've changed it.
I don't think
Uh,
I even really saw
Thank you, Eswell. Thank
a
you.
expiration day as far as those pay transmitters. When I last went on the site, the only thing I saw was just when it was activated. Because I think, yeah,
Really? I think mine has an expiration date on it. Like you have to replace them every, like with mine, I think when I got it, I think the expiration date was like 10 years.
hmm.
And I don't know if that's
I don't know.
changed.
I'll have to take a look at mine one of these times. But it's like I know,
So hopefully, Nathan, you will get plenty of opportunities to use that iPass.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's like as far as the whole hotel thing, like even though it's it's good that they're moving into a bigger space, to accommodate the gradual growth that they've been accumulating over the years. But at the same time, it's sort of sad that parts of the routine or tradition that we've been having for basically eight straight years before the pandemic thing took place that it's now sort of gone in a ways.
Well, yeah, it was forced upon all of us that an end of an era came and we didn't have an opportunity to sort of change it. But even then, I started thinking, okay, well, let's say the pandemic didn't happen and we had GFest this year. I don't think any, I mean, JD and maybe some of the people who are in charge of taking care of the convention maybe had some inkling that a new hotel was coming, but I don't know if it would have necessarily been confirmed or not by the convention's end. But, you
Well, I
know,
mean, it's like they
it's
had to plan this far ahead in advance already, and it's like I think they've already had this in mind for some time now, and I think they probably would have at least have mentioned it. I think towards the end of this convention, if it was held this year without the pandemic thing going on. But yeah, I mean, with the way how they've announced that the Hyatt Regency O'Hare Chicago is going to be the new spot from here on out, is that they've already had this plan far in advance because they got to make sure that they get the date set that they
the
usually
space
have,
and all that.
the
Yeah.
space and the date that they always have it every year. And yeah, they would have had this planned out ahead of time.
Yeah, and anybody who is curious as to what this thing looks like, all you need to do is visit the hotel's
Yeah,
website.
just
The hotel's website has plenty of photos. You will
a lot of
get.
the meeting room and ballroom photos, like just from what we've seen it like a couple months ago, it's like this thing is just gonna be gigantic.
It's not just gigantic. I mean, I think they even have one big convention hall there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But there are just a number of ballrooms in general. Some of them looked really big, others looked kind of small, but it's a really beautiful, kind of fancy place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the one hand, I'm really sad that the end of an era has come with the Crown Plaza because, again, just I'm a very sentimental individual, so it's hard for me to kind of let go of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw photos of this new hotel and kind of what some of the convention halls and ballrooms and stuff look like, that's I got excited. I'm like, I actually would love to be there right now, just scoping out the joint because this place not only looks massive, it looks beautiful. I think it would be fun just to even walk around and take a tour of
Well,
it.
and when I was gonna originally come to your place for the week, and if it if I was still gonna come to your place, tomorrow when I was planning on originally coming back home here that I was actually going to stay the full night at that hotel to actually scope it out and see how it looked, especially for next year, and just kind of get the idea of how things might look like in my head. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case because. And I was thinking about trying to stay there for another night before coming to your place, but unfortunately they were still closed. But they were going to open back up this past Monday, and it was going to be the same thing for the Crown Plaza because I was thinking about trying to stay a night, possibly 2 nights there. But fortunately, they're not going to be opening up this until this coming Monday. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it just, again, it sucks to find ourselves here. I mean, like I said, I've felt empty and depressed and kind of lost. Um, and it's not the same. It just isn't, and it's not just, obviously Jason and myself, it's everybody who either was planning to go to make this their first time at a GFest, or others who have continued to go for much longer than we have. I know there's this one individual that Jason and I are friends with, who has gone to every single GFest. He has not missed a single one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
the last one. He wasn't entirely sure if he wasn't gonna make it, but he still did.
yeah. He found a way.
Yeah.
he's very persistent. That's one of the things that makes him so awesome, is that he's like, look, this is something I have done for many years. This is tradition for me too, so I'm gonna make this work. But yeah, it was always something that gave us, at least Jason and I, a big kaiju fix. And like I said, we don't get to see each other in person that often during any given year. And it was just great to hang out with each other. And we always did crazy, stupid stuff. And it's just.
And then, like, even our traditional lunches over at Five Roses Pub. And right after that, we tend to go over to the Big Ten Conference Museum as their headquarters, just literally right next door to that Aloft Hotel in that theater district.
Yeah, GFest is moving to a different hotel. It's like a block up from the Crown Plaza. It's the Hyatt Regency.
It's the Hyatt. O'Hare. It's the Hyatt Regency O'Hare, Chicago.
Yeah, beautiful hotel. Go check out. Type in the hotel name in Google and visit their site. You will see. It's gonna be.
It's like. When you compare it to that hotel with Crown Plaza, it's far bigger.
Oh yeah, it's definitely bigger. The ballrooms, I would argue, too, are definitely fancier.
And I'd probably say
one
of the nice pluses for GFest moving to the new hotel is that when it comes to the dealer room with the current situation where it was for many years, where it took over a couple sections of the huge ballroom that Crown Plaza has, and one of my main gripes, and I'm probably guessing some of the others too, that when it comes to that far east side of that dealer's room where Radioactive Toys and then some of the other vendors there, where it was the most crowded section of the dealer's room, and like it took literally maybe several minutes just to try to get through that entire aisle there. And
not if you get yourself really hulked up and you're just determined to go through and run over people in the process.
Just forcing yourself all the way through just to get everyone to move, because it seems like a lot of people are just standing still, not giving everyone space to at least walk
it's
through.
Hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because not only due to space, but Radioactive Toys is one of those vendors where they have quite the selection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have almost anything you're looking for, at least when it comes to vinyls. And you can't blame people. That's what a lot of people want, are the vinyls. And then the thing is that okay, you go to a larger hotel and you open up that large convention hall. That large convention hall, yeah, is going to give you more space, but you know what? That extra space means it's likely that you could get other vendors in there too. So, sure, you're getting more of a variety in terms of vendors, but then still, you could end up having some of the same issues with space, depending upon how many vendors show up,
Mm-hmm.
that year. And if you have maybe only a few extra vendors, may not be so bad. So, you know, it
And
just
then,
kind of depends on who.
well, and also it depends on how they're possibly going to be setting up that one big ballroom. It's like, are they planning on maybe having that as the entire dealer's room? Excuse me. Or splitting it up into two, maybe for doing like half as a ballroom and then the other one as a dealer's room, my bad. And the other one as sort of like the main hall for like some of the big panels and special guest interviews, and costume parades, so on and so forth. Or I don't know how they're going to do it, but I know that they've got many other conference slash media rooms within that hotel that they can possibly use for other things.
Yeah, I mean, there's the opportunity for expansion on every level. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
part of
No
the
doubt.
problem with part of the problem with Crown Plaza, especially the last 2 years, has been the Caddyshack restaurant. That killed a lot of space, and
Mm-hmm.
I know Artist Alley has, from my understanding, it was the one thing that, because that's where Artist Alley used to be,
I
and
think.
that was the thing that really
Well,
caused a lot of problems in terms of where do we set this
well,
up.
it's like I know when we first started coming to GFEST, they were in that
Yeah, it
one
would be nice to
in
put on a
that
Godzilla suit.
in when we first started going to GFest, I think the first year or two that they were in that one little kind of cavity area where they uh, started
Across
doing,
from Ballroom 4 and
yeah,
5.
started doing the celebrity or special guest autographs the last couple of years. But then they moved it into that one ballroom, which is now the Caddyshack restaurant over at the Crown Plaza, for many years up until the last couple of years, and then they had to move it down to Love A and B rooms
In the hallway.
where those used to have been the sculpture displays, which they had to unfortunately move it over to the other space where the escalators or that one flight of stairs was.
Well, and the thing was, is, and I didn't realize this until last year. I'm like, when we first started going in GFest 19, Artist Alley wasn't much of
Yeah,
anything.
it
And
wasn't
then
that
just in the
big.
very short time, it blew
Yeah.
up. I mean, it was amazing how quickly that expanded
Mm-hmm.
in just such a short period of time.
Yeah.
But I never really took note of that until last year. I'm like, wait a minute, like this has blown up quite a bit. And during the time that we have been going to this convention, it was really interesting. I just never
Yeah,
noticed
it's like
that.
uh, in the first forum that we knew of when we started going to G Fest of Artist Alley, you got to know more of the artists themselves, what it felt like at that time. It's like you got to know them, talk to them a little bit, but then when it went to that to those big rooms for most of the time that we've been going there, it just felt like you didn't have the whole didn't have the time to talk to the individual artists themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, people love kaiju art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people love art in general. I mean, why not? I still um, just find it. I still find it interesting just how quickly that yeah, that just how that grew. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Matt Frank too. Yep. There was one artist, and I trying to remember his name, Jay something. Um, and I forgot his name. He's one of my personal favorites. I think he's an undervalued artist, Jay something. Um, and I don't remember
And then the other thing,
what his name is.
the other thing,
Jay Hoffman.
the other thing I was thinking about too is that every year that they do the like show the movies, TV shows in that midway room, but now with moving to the new hotel, I wonder if they're gonna still continue on doing that. Just probably get one of the other bigger rooms that or bigger meeting slash conference rooms that the Hyatt Hotel has and do it there, or I don't know if they plan on get discontinuing on that. I hope they don't discontinue it. By the way, but yeah, we'll have to definitely find out when it comes to that point.
Yeah, just again, ugh. Again, it blindsided. I mean, when this pandemic started, once they said it was a pandemic in mid-March, and I remember telling you, I said, GFEST is going to be canceled this year because I knew once it became a pandemic, I'm like, we're in this thing for at least a year. And this isn't going to be a quick out. Because you just don't get rid of a virus or whatever that quickly. It's novel, and I knew immediately when it said pandemic. I said, there goes the year. Like, G-Fest is done. My kids are not going to be, they're going to be done with actually, going to the physical school building now for the foreseeable future and all that. I mean, and of course, it took a while for G-Fest to officially be canceled, and there were a number of reasons as to why.
Because I think it.
But I said it's just a matter of
Because I think
time.
they canceled it around Mayish, I believe.
Like late May, I think.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was still keeping up hope that it was still gonna actually happen because I wasn't gonna cancel anything, even the hotel room until they actually say something. And I know once in a while either you or I would try to check up on if there were any updates on it, but I was still trying to at least keep up hope that it was still gonna take place.
Yeah, and I kind of thought realistically maybe they were going to announce cancellation early mid-June, and I thought they wouldn't do it later than mid-June because they want to give people enough time to make cancellations and all that. But I was surprised, like they canceled a little bit earlier than I thought they were. But yeah, I knew immediately because I remember telling you, I said, dude, that's it. Like, it's done. It's not a question of if, but
Mm-hmm.
when it's going to get canceled. And sure shooting, like 2.5 months later, it was officially canceled. And
Yeah, and
I just,
and then I think maybe a week or so later after they decided to cancel it, that I got the refund back for our weekend pass that we usually get, but I'm still keeping that in my PayPal account because I know we're still gonna be going back to it. So it's like, thanks for the refund, but still gonna keep it in there for the time being. So then that way, at least I can remember that I won't don't have to take the time to uh, transfer it over from my bank account to my PayPal account, which would take at least a certain amount of days to do it. So I was like, hey, it's right there.
yeah. Well, I think with that, are we ready to close out DAIKAIJU FEST?
Um, I think so, unless anybody else has anything that they want to ask us as far as
Something for
GFest.
12 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, and with that, maybe I'll take a little bit of the time to bring this up. As far as the streaming networks, we'll be streaming live along with our other shows on these following streaming networks: YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, Periscope, and DLive. And you can also follow us on the audio versions of our podcasts over at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and TuneIn. And you can also like and subscribe to us at these following social media networks. Just search for Daikaiju Network, and you can find us at our own website over at daikaijunetwork.com.
Yeah, awesome. And then if I can hopefully maybe
Have you
have
you guys ever met Shinji Nishikawa?
I have not, but I am friends with him on Facebook, so I know who he is.
I think
I've never gotten to talk to him or anything like that.
I think I might be friends with him as well. Okay. Nope, I'm not currently friends with him on Facebook at the moment.
Yeah, he's a very, talented, very talented artist. I mean, he is something else, and yeah. But yeah, if I can hold on, I want to try to post at least try anyways to post this URL. Maybe Restream will actually take it this time, unlike the GFEST thing here. Will it take? Restream's even slow with stuff here. Doggone it, didn't work there. Let's try it again. Second time. Third time's a charm. Come on. Oh, for Pete's sakes. For whatever reason, Restream today is not allowing me to post URLs. Hold on, I'm going to post it in the YouTube feed. But it is kaijuconline.com. There it is. Definitely check it out.
Speaking of which, I should probably bring...
Yes, and so it starts tomorrow morning, I believe 9 a.m. Pacific time. And check it out. Like I said, Artist Alley, vendors,
special guests.
The whole kit and caboodle. So check it out. Hopefully this has been fun for everybody. We kind of wanted to have something that was at least casual discussion and bring anyone who came in to be a part of it as well.
Actually, can't believe time has flown here for a second day.
Oh, I know. Yeah. We just wanted to have casual discussions about Kaiju. And so hopefully everybody had fun. And definitely check out Kaiju Conline over the weekend for more of an actual online convention experience.
And then too, if you like to follow us as well, we do podcasts and commentaries once every other week. I would say maybe 2 to 3 times per month, depending upon the schedule there. And yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, once again, thank you so much to everybody who has watched our stream, participated in some form of or fashion as well. Again, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. My hope is that this is the only time we will be doing this.
I hope so
too. Because I had fun doing this.
Because I know.
But I would rather have the actual convention right now.
Because I know I'm the one that's basically running everything here. Because I've got my phone here with like a little transition thing from cam to cam here, and got my laptop going and trying to juggle everything here all at once.
Yeah,
and basically what I do almost every time.
Yeah, I just, hopefully this is it.
I hope so too.
Yeah, because I would rather have the actual convention, but
And also
time will tell.
just sit down, relax, and enjoy all the other discussions and other fan created films and everything.
Yeah. So with that, once again, thank you so much to everybody for tuning in over these last 2 days, and for anybody who watches this, in the days to come. This is a very hard time
Hmm.
for everybody, and it's somber and quite frankly kind of depressing.
But also
Um, so,
make it a good one too, because today's Ultraman Day. So hopefully you're be watching Ultraman throughout the entire day today, and maybe during if you're watching us right now. And so yeah, definitely celebrate Ultraman Day with any kind of TV show that you're currently watching right now. And then also I'll sometime down the road I'll be trying to make sure to trying to cut up different segments from DAIKAIJU FEST and try to make it a little bit more specific. And if you want to get to watch a certain type of discussion that we did for the past couple days.
by the way, right as of right now, go to twitch.tv/Daikaiju TV. They are showing all sorts of different films and stuff. As of right now, it's the very end of Gamera 3. He just blew off his hand. So
Nice.
that's where we're at. I'm actually gonna go to our Facebook page and then post that link as well. So yeah, definitely check that out too. And there's all sorts of, again, go to kaijuconline.com. They have all sorts of links and all sorts of information. Check it out over the weekend. And again, thank you so. I can't thank all you guys enough for watching the stream, whether you did it live or you did it after the fact. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching and listening to us. Um, this was fun to put together, but like I said, I do wish though we had the actual convention.
Yeah. And since we're on here, should we discuss what we want to do for our next podcast or possible commentary?
I mean, we can. I'm not exactly sure.
Or do you want to do it offline here?
I would rather do it offline.
Okay. So yeah, thanks for watching, and just keep an eye out on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. One of those accounts that will hopefully make an announcement soon if we're going to be doing a regular DKN podcast or a DKN commentary of a specific movie.
Yep.
So thanks for watching, and thanks for for joining us. And we'll catch you guys later.
Yep, we'll catch you in the not so distant future.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.